This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we will continue in Perek Hey, chapter 5 of Shaar Habechina. That is the gate of Bechina is reflection. And the idea over here, my good friend Ness, is about opening our eyes and seeing the incredible miracles and goodness that this world is filled with, and not taking it for granted, but feeling and showing that appreciation for all that which goes on. And we spoke earlier how we have the tendency that when something goes wrong, we say, God, why me? Why me? When things go right, we don't say, why me? What did I do to deserve this? Right? It's almost like we have this expectation that the world will be serving us with this Shangri-La, and when things don't go exactly the way that we want, we feel we've been shortchanged. So Shaar Bechina, and he's been dealing with the human body. Hi, Kathy. There are many. Hi, Kathy. There are many different ways that we can see God in the world, and we're focusing here on the human body. Va'achar kein yashiv el libo. That's where we left off last time. Kathy, you have that? Yeah? And then you want to take to heart v'yistakel and contemplate. Look at bitoelet evare gufo, the gains, the wonders of the different limbs, components, organs of your body. V'ofanei takanato b'chol echad mehem, and how each of them are arranged, are organized, are constructed. Hayadayim, the hands, lakachat v'latet. My father said it was the human thumb that gives us all of this ability and this dexterity. Haraglayim, the legs, alechet, to walk. Ha'inayim, the eyes, lirot. Va'aznayim lishmoa, and the ears to hear. And when the way science has progressed and our understanding of all these things, it is just astounding. It is absolutely astounding, right? How do we see? Our brain is able to interpret all these reflections of light as they're coming, because as you are nodding your head, Ness, as I'm talking, there's different reflections, and I'm following your movement, right? And the fly goes by, I see that, I'm able to, well, sometimes able to it's just incredible. Ha'aznayim lishmoa, the ears, how we're able to hear. Va'af, the nose, lahariach, to smell. V'halashon, and the tongue. We'll see different things that it does. But lidaber, speech is such incredible dexterity of our tongue and our tongue and our lips and all that goes into it, right? The teeth, everything. It's just coming out of the chovot, right? For some of those Middle Eastern consonants that we have. Hapeh le'echol, the mouth to eat. Hashinayim lil'os, the teeth in order to grind up. V'ha'atztumcha, and the stomach. Livashel literally means to cook, but we would say it means to digest, to break it down. Huh? It's cooking, actually. Yeah, right. The acids in there is cooking it up and breaking it down. Va'kaved lizakeka mazon, the different parts of the body that help to purify all this. Va'simfonot lotzia motarot, va'kisim lisavlam, right? It works. The food works its way through the digestive tract, and the body then is able to extract what it needs and to eliminate the rest. Va'kisim lisavlam, and the kisim, these different sacs that allow us to hold on to this to these wastes until we decide it's time to eliminate it. But it's not a constant flow that comes out of us, which would of course make life a lot more difficult for us. Va'alev, and the heart, Mishkan hachoma tivi u'maboa hachayim, which is the fountain of our life. I mean, think about it. The heart from day one, and it actually starts beating already in embryo, right? But how many times does our heart beat? Person who lives 80 years, right? So the typical pulse is about 60 beats a minute, right? Times 60 times 24 times 365 times 80. We're talking about if not billion, probably billions. No, hundreds of millions.
Hundreds, but a ton. A lot of millions.
The hamoach and the brain. We still can't, science cannot fathom consciousness, right?
Still can't.
Yeah,
Can't figure it out.
right. The brain.
Only using 5% of it.
Yeah,
If that much.
right. Using a small percentage of it, but it's all cells. How does a cell have a memory? Right? It's a bunch of cells. How does that cell have a memory that all of a sudden I'll hear someone or I'll hear a song and I had this rush of memories of things from happened years and years. How do cells have memory?
That's the easy part of the cell.
Yeah.
The cells tells the body what to do.
Yeah.
That's
the
one.
Yeah. You see, but I can wrap my head around that a little bit easier, right? That there are messages that tell the muscle to contract, right? The chest cavity to expand, thereby the air comes. Right? But thoughts, an idea, a poem, a memory.
That's another section of
that's not physiological. Telling my muscle to move, so that's a message that's being sent, and it contracts. Yeah. Mishkana kochona ruchaniyim.
Dreams.
Yeah. That's all that's going on in the brain. I mean, all these thoughts. The moach, which is that mishkan, that tabernacle, the dwelling place of our spiritual abilities, umavoa, and the source, the fountain of hergesh, of all of our feelings, shoresh atzavim, v'harechem, and a womb, l'kayim hazera, that takes this conceived two half cells and turns that into a functioning human being, right? How that builds, the brain, which is such a supercomputer that puts all of the supercomputers to shame, that just comes on its own. Shaar evarei haguf, and so to the other limbs of the body. V'asher ye'alein mimenu mitolasam yoter mima shenira lanu. That we understand a lot less, right? If we're going to measure how much do we understand of it, right? What does it do and how much do we understand? What we understand is a very small percentage of what it actually does. I shared before when I was a teenager, I used to like Reader's Digest had a series, I Am Joe's Liver, I Am Jane's Uterus, right? And I used to enjoy reading it. It was written very well. Huh?
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, they used to have that. And then my father, of blessed memory, sent me a book, which was a compilation of all of these. I was living in Israel. And when I read through it one after another, something became very, very funny. Because very often they'd say, science or the scientific world used to think I was nothing but but an unnecessary leftover of evolution. But now they realize that I control the hormones, I control this, I control that. And then the next article will say, but this is nothing but a useless relic of evolution. I remember reading that thing to myself, the same way that you got your tongue in cheek when you talk about what they thought 50 years ago. 50 years from now, they'll have their tongue in cheek, right? Talking about what you said was a leftover relic. When I studied some biology with my daughter when she was taking biology in college, so there's something that used to be called junk DNA, right? The DNA is what the cells use as a template to produce the different proteins that the body needs, right? But only like 2% of the DNA is actually active in giving this template for the proteins. So the rest, they used to call it junk DNA. But then they find, no, that helps make this, help makes that. There's the RNA, and that at times, right, the DNA is split up into different groupings. At times it could regroup based on that to access different things, right? All of these incredible wonders that are just going on. I remember when I was taking biology in ninth grade, and I loved it. And we spent 3 months on the digestive system, and then 3 months on the respiratory system, and then on the lymphatic system, and then the circulatory system. And then also I had this ninth grade epiphany that, this is all happening simultaneously. It's not, we got 3 months the digestion works, and then 3 months circulation works, and then 3 months respiration works. This is all going on simultaneously, so perfectly interlocking with one another. It is just incredible. Uchamochen, and similarly, tirena pu'ulo tateva betoch haguf. And see the different processes that go on inside our body for those who delve into it. Bigia hamazon elav, the food comes into our body. Bichelko oto, and then how the body breaks it down and divides it. Al kol chelek michalke aguf, sending each part of the body what it needs. We see these incredible signs of incredibly deep wisdom. Mashi Yizarez Oto Lodot Levaro L'Shavcha Aleihim. It's got to inspire us, to move us, to grant, to thank, and to praise the Creator for all this. Kamosh Amar David, like King David said, Alav Hashalom in Tehillim and Psalms, Kol Atzmotai, all of my bones, all of my extremities, all of my limbs. I will say every cell of my body, Tomarna, it's as if it shouts out and says, Hashem, God, mi kamocha, who is like you? Right? Every cell is like this incredible factory that not only produces its own energy, but then it decides to replicate itself. I mean, it's just beyond science fiction.
Beyond science fiction.
Who? Shahamachal holech el habeta, and the food goes down to the stomach. El ta'alem muchenet al kava yashar. It goes through a pipeway that is a very straight pipeway, right? That is the esophagus, right? And it works its way straight down the esophagus in order to get into our stomach. Ein ba ikum below ivut. There are no twists and turns when it comes to the esophagus. There, that would defeat the purpose. The purpose is to get it down in a clear manner into the stomach. V'hu haveshet, and that is the veshet. That's Hebrew for the esophagus. Achar kach tochenet oto habeten. Afterwards, it gets ground up, right? Right? Not so much through a beating motion, though there is a certain what are those called? Something called those. I forget now what it's called. Right? As it moves it through the system, right? But chemically, the acids in the stomach, they grind that up. Yoter min atchina, in a greater way, shetachnu oto hashinayim b'tchila, more than the teeth. The teeth broke it down somewhat, but then the stomach breaks it down that much further. He doesn't mention that now we understand that in the saliva, the digestion already begins with different enzymes that are in the saliva that already start to break things down. It's interesting. We have a halacha. Well, the halacha is we can't have milk and meat together. And the halacha, though, then translates for most is that after having meat, we'll wait 6 hours before we have dairy. One of the reasons given is basar ben hashinayim, because you might have some meat that's still stuck in your teeth, right? If you don't floss after every meal, right, you might have some meat that's stuck in your teeth. So what happens after 6 hours? Well, after 6 hours, it's already become somewhat impotent by sitting there in the mouth with the saliva around it. That after 6 hours, it's already no longer such an issue that even if one does have dairy and it mixes up with it, it won't be such an issue. What's happened? It's already been somewhat digested in your mouth by the enzymes that are in the saliva. After the stomach, peristalsis. Peristalsis is the wave-like motion that brings the food down and through the digestive tract. That was the word I was looking for before. Peristalsis, right? And then it goes to different parts of the body. Nogim beinatayim, right? And right, whereas the esophagus was straight, the small intestine, right? If you were to stretch it out, you're talking about tens and tens of feet. Right? Why? Because that way it has the most contact and the body is able to extract into the bloodstream all that we need to extract from that food. It's there like a sifter, right? Taking out, extracting what we need and leaving the rest there. You don't want anything too big go working its way through. He's talking about the liver over here. And then it's transformed to blood, or we would say that it's then absorbed. All of these nutrients are then absorbed by the blood, and then you have the most incredible transportation system, taking all this and sending it all around. And then it gets divided up to all the cells of the body. And it will be sent out to all of the parts, through these different tubes, arteries, veins, capillaries. That's all set for that. Katalot hamuchanot lemayin, like you have these different water holders that goes through. V'yishlach mashin nishamin apsolet el talot huchanala, and then whatever the body can't use, the waste that will be sent to its receptacles. Mashuhu min amara aduma holach kesamarok, mash min amara hashachor holech halatachol. Different parts go to different parts of the body. Umash min alecha va'arotav holech al hareya. Right, he speaks about going to the lungs. Umash mitam sidam yelech al shalfuchit. That goes into the circulatory system. Everything goes where it is that it needs to go to. Hitbonein. Think about this. Achai, my brothers and sisters. B'chachmat habore, the incredible wisdom of the Creator. Bahar kavat gufcha, that goes into your body. You speak to doctors. What's amazing is when everything goes right. Right? Sometimes things go wrong. But with all of the intricacy and the codependency and how everything is working with the other part, it's amazing when everything goes right. That's the moda ani lefanecha that we start every day with. It's just incredible.
More incredible when something doesn't work right, and slowly, it becomes good.
Right.
We
Yeah.
get sick, something happens, and then it fixes itself.
Yeah. And that's mentioned how the body has the ability to repair itself. When I was a kid, like 5, 6, 7 years old, my bicycle had a flat tire. So I figured no big deal. I'll put it into the garage, and a few days later it'll be better. Because I know whenever I got a cut, right, a few days later it got better. My father had to break the news to me. It's not going to get better by itself. But we say, oh well, the body does because that's alive, as if saying that it's alive that's an answer. That just increases the wonder and the amazement, right? How is something alive, right? Science prides itself on something has to be something that can be repeated, that can be duplicated. But something becoming alive, going from not alive to alive, which science believes without God's involvement that somehow life began. Well, where's life beginning? Like how come? Right? It is just beyond.
Veshumo.
Yeah. Elav ha'ivarim bo, and the placement of each of these organs, bimakomotam, in their proper place, l'sabel hapsulot ahem, that, and how the body is able to, still speaking about the digestion, that the waste products go into an area that contains that. Shelo tit pashtena beguf vatachlena oto, that it should not spread into the body, right, and cause a person to become sick, right? A person, has a punctured colon, and that starts to spill into the body. Oy vavoy, oy vavoy, right? And a person who I've shared before, I could share it again. A beautiful article in JAMA, JAMA, the Journal of American Medical Association, written by a Dr. Kenneth Prager, who I know his son very, very well, right? And he wrote about the Asher Yatzar blessing, how the Asher Yatzar blessing that we say after successfully eliminating our wastes when we go to the restroom, right? And how as kids you used to laugh, you're making a blessing over that? Over duty? Over, are you making a blessing over that? Right?
The most important
Yeah.
blessing.
But he said after becoming a doctor and spending time, right, with those who are compromised, right? And then he writes how there was one patient, right, who was in a terrible accident, and it was unclear if he would ever if he would ever have his own control over his bladder, right? And when he reached the point that he was able to urinate on his own, so he suggested to this patient, right, who had also gone to yeshiva, that maybe we should say the Asher Yatzar together, right? And that patient was actually his son, right, who was in a terrible accident, and has really has lived an incredible life with some of those limitations, but lived and continues to live an incredible life, right? And without that, right, we take it for granted, but it is such an incredible blessing. And then look into b'tchunat kli hakol, voice, umotzei hadibor, our ability to speak, hakaneh navuv, right? The kaneh, the trachea, which has those vocal cords, right? Which is like a harp, lohotzat hakol, to guide and to have a voice that comes out. V'halashon, and the tongue, v'asfatayim, and the lips, v'ashinayim, and the teeth, l'chituch ha'otiot v'ata'amim, that allows us to cut, to slice these different sounds, producing different words and different sentences. The Chofetz Chaim, well, one of the things that he wrote about, for which he got the name the Chofetz Chaim, was his book on proper speech, right? Based on the verse, Mi ha'ish, who's the person, a Chofetz Chaim, who wants life? Nitzor l'shon chameira, guard your tongue from speaking evilly. And he brings a pasuk, a verse, where God says, I become wearied from your words. And he explains, what does it mean that God becomes weary? God doesn't come tired for anything. What will make God weary? And he explains, if I do something for your benefit, and then you use that to hurt yourself or to hurt others, that is the most wearying, frustrating feeling that a person can have. Remember when I was a teenager, there was a punk rock group called the Boomtown Rats, and they had a song, Tell Me Why I Don't Like Monday. And unfortunately, that's become a very common occurrence since then. but then it was a very unusual occurrence. And the story is about a girl, teenage girl, probably young teenage girl, whose parents got her a hunting rifle for Christmas. Right? What if it was a hunting family? It was the greatest gift they can give her. And then she went to school the next day on Monday, and she shot up people in the school. She killed people in the school. And when they asked her, "Why'd you do it?" she said, "I don't like Mondays." So the song was, "Tell me why I don't like Mondays." Right? Imagine the agmas nefesh, just the parents, they saved up. They thought they were doing their daughter such a favor in giving her this gift that she so much wanted. She can now go hunting with the rest of the family. And she used that to destroy her life and to take the lives of others and to destroy the lives of so many others. So Chavos Chaim says that Hashem becomes weary from our words. Why? Because if you think about it, every word of Torah is a mitzvah in and of itself. Now, I put on tefillin this morning. You put on tefillin this morning, right? That's a mitzvah. But that's an act. It took a lot of motion in order to do that mitzvah of tefillin, right? It's a very mitzvah to labor intensive. And then when it comes to Torah, God gave us this Lamborghini, this mouth that could spew out easily 150, 200 words a minute. And all of a sudden, today I have the mitzvah of tefillin, of hand tefillin, the mitzvah of head tefillin. And when it comes to Torah, I've got thousands and thousands of mitzvahs. I've got this Lamborghini that just rides. But what's the problem? Right? Because if I would have to if I have to spell out every word like that, how much could I accomplish? But we have this ability, we don't even think about it. We're not even thinking what's happening with our mouth and our tongue and our palate and our lips and our throat and our teeth. But we just all you want to say, and we just say it. Then 100 words a minute, 200 words a minute, 300 words a minute, it just goes flying out. So it's this incredible accelerator that God gave us. But the problem is, he says, why does Hashem get weary? Because when I use that, now, if that was the way I needed to speak, I had to allow every single syllable. So when I'm about to speak badly about someone else, it's just not worth the effort. Why should I speak badly about someone? It's going to take me 10 minutes to get it out. It's going to take so much energy. I wouldn't speak badly. I wouldn't speak any Lashon Hara. But because I don't have to think about the words that I say, I could just, hey, did you hear what so-and-so did? Look what that person's doing. Could you believe it? Right? All of a sudden it just flows out. So Hashem says, I gotten weary from your words because it was a gift. This accelerator that he gave us was a gift that we can accomplish so much and so many mitzvot from it. But there's always the zeh le'umat zeh, the balance. And the downside is that it could cause so much pain and so much havoc also at this accelerated pace. So all these things that we have, where were we?
I hope it's
yeah.
V'yesh.
Right? And these, right, the windpipe through which the air comes out, and the tongue, and the lips, and the teeth, and all that, right, which allows us to speak, also has, right, it double dips, right? It's working 2 jobs at the same time. Right? It's like COVID. All of a sudden I can have 2 jobs and work from home anyhow. Right? It has all these multiple jobs at the same time. Ha'avir, right? The same air that I'm using to speak now, at the same time I have to breathe in, and what happens? And the trachea is allowing the air to come out in the words that I'm speaking as it is sending air down into my lungs. It goes through that same trachea. As I'm talking, I'm also breathing. And there's this 2-way traffic over here. So as I'm talking and speaking with all of us, what's happening also? Air's going down into the lungs, and the blood's going nearby and extracting the oxygen or some of the oxygen from that. The halashon, and the tongue, which is used for speaking. Litom bo hamatamim, also the incredible tastes that the tongue is able to determine. V'yeshbo imzeh ezer. And besides that, besides the talking and the tasting, it also helps lahavir machal v'amishteh, right? It also helps to bring the food and the drinks down the proper pipe, down the esophagus, v'ashinayim, the teeth, in addition to helping me with, as I'm speaking, lil osam ma'achal, to chew the food, hasvatayim, and the lips, right? Besides also helping with the speaking, is la'kev mishteh, when I'm drinking, there's no going to go flying out. It allows me to contain it. Kedei sheyeh hanitzok mimenu b'shir v'kavanah. Whatever comes out should be coming out in a measured way, as I want it to come out, as opposed to just, belching out. V'chein b'shar, and so too by all the other ha'evarim to'alot, all the other limbs, organs, extremities, that they bring us all of these benefits. Miksatam yiduim, or miksatam einan yiduot lanu. Right? Some of it is known to us. Like you said before, even more than that is not known to us about all that it does. I remember when I took this biology course with my daughter Devora a number of years ago. In the textbook, they said that in the mitochondria, which is where the cells are creating their energy, extracting every last bit of energy from every oxygen atom. It's just incredible. So there it says, and they spoke about this certain gray, literally a gray area in the mitochondria, that scientists are now trying to figure out what role that plays, right? We're still trying to figure out, and all these things, there's so much more that we don't know than that which we do know. The achach is bonein, achi, and then look into this, my brothers and sisters. Bikochot ha'arba'ah, at these four different forces. Shehema beguf, that the body employs, so to speak. Umaseyem bo, which is hakoach hamoshech, that which pulls in. Hu hamekabel hama'achal, that's what receives the food. V'hamagio, and delivers it, ela atztumcha, to the stomach. Hakoach hamachazik, and then there's the input, there is the holding on to it. Hu ma'akev hama'achal, that's what allows us to hold on to the food. Ad sheyeh bo ateva ma'aseu, until our body can do what it needs to do to that food, right? And we need to extract, right, or the proper amount of liquid from it, right? If we don't, then it goes right through us. That's never very pleasant when we're dealing with that. If it extracts too much liquid, then it doesn't want to leave us. That's also not so pleasant, right? Either one of those extremes. So we have the koach hamoshech that pulls it in, the koach, the force hamachazik, that holds on to it for the proper amount of time, hakoach hamivashel, the force that processes it. So there's the intake, there's the storage, there's the processing. Motzi hazach shabo, extracting all that which is pure, all that which is good from it. Umafridam and apsolet habilti naot, separating it from the waste products that the body does not need. And then lastly, mishaleach oto el aguf, right? And then distributing it to the body. And then the cleanup, v'koach hadocha, and the force which is doche, which pushes it out. Hu adoche apsolet hanotarot, that pushes, expels the remaining waste. After the digestive process has taken out from it anything that it actually needs. There's a very, very interesting teaching. The man that fell from heaven, that was referred to as halechem hakolokel, this breakdown food. And Rashi explains, it went in, but it didn't go out. And we were kind of spooked by that. right? What goes in and doesn't come out. The man went in, didn't come out. Why is that? And fascinating, the Nefesh HaChaim writes, well, the earth, once we ate from the tree of the mixture of knowledge of good and evil, everything became a mixture of good and evil. And therefore the land became accursed. As we said, that thorns, right, by the sweat of your brow, you'll eat your bread, and thorns and thistles, everything is a mixture. So anything that comes from the earth has that mixture of good and evil, of necessary and unnecessary, of nutritious and of waste. And therefore the body needs to separate and expel that which we don't need. But that's only that which comes from the accursed earth. That which comes from the heaven, the man, that does not have that mixture. And therefore that is kulo tov. That is completely ingested. So everything about our life, meaning in a physical sense, what does our body need to do? Extract, choose the good and reject the bad. That's in a physical sense. And in a spiritual sense, what do we need to do in life? We need to choose good and expel, reject that which is not good. So this is like almost built into us. These choices that need to be made, that these divisions that need to be made between Tov and Ra. Re'ei si heach hufkedu eitzel ela kochot ala guf. How these different forces are employed, are given their mission by the body, l'shamesh oto, to serve the body, b'mashi yesh bo takanato, in that which aids the body, that which helps us. Fuhu, and it's like a chatzer melech, it's like the enterprise of a king. Sheish bo avadim, who has his servants, unitzivim, and his appointees, pikidim al beito, who run the household. Echad mehem, one omeid litzarchei avadim, lagiam el gizbar hamelech. One of them is there for the intake of whatever it is that the palace needs, and that's all brought to the storehouse. So he works on the intake. Pakid Sheni, a second department. Lekabel Mashiver Rishon. Letzoroto bebayit ad she's yuchan v'yitukan. Then once it comes in, the second job is the storage of it. It should go to its proper place until it will be properly used. Pakid Shlishi, the third department. Lachin mashinetzel letakno lezamno lechalkol avadim, to take that which has been there from the storehouse, and if it needs to be worked on and developed, to develop it, to alter it, and to make sure it gets sent to where it needs to get sent to, within that palace of the king. Pakid Revi'i, and then the fourth aspect is the cleanup. Lechabed, mashiach b'bayit min hazevel, to sweep up what remains in the house from any of these leftover products that were not used, all the wrappings and all the peels and all that. V'alichluch ulahotziam mimenu, and to send it out from there. Now, this actually, what's really incredible is this is what's happening on a macro scale with our body. And it's also happening on a micro scale, meaning every single cell has its semi-permeable membrane that allows certain things to come inside, what it needs, expels what it doesn't need, and it works with all of those things. I forget who wrote this, right? But when we're looking at it simply on a biological level, right? What gives these atoms and molecules the ability to decide, oh, this is a good thing to come in? No, this is not a good thing to come in. Right? Which goes back to that whole idea, there's the consciousness on this level, but there's also this wisdom and this consciousness on a cellular level, that it knows what to take in, what not to take in. Right? I was talking to somebody yesterday who's who's a young man he grew up in the neighborhood here, wonderful family, and he's going pre-med. And I told him that when I took biology, for me that was the greatest. When I took biology along with my daughter, I didn't have to take the tests. I just did the studying. For me, that was it was the greatest Musar book that I possibly could have learned. Right? When you just see just how incredible, how exact everything is. And to me, to think that for someone to say that this all happened randomly, I'm okay with evolution as long as we have God who is guiding the process. But when it's random, right? Randomness creates an eye that can see. Randomness creates ears and minds that can think and plan and can love and can create. Randomness creates my dining room table when I don't take care of when I don't when Natalie's away, right? And things just pile up over there. That's a randomness, right? And actually, one of the rules of physics is that the randomness will create chaos. Randomness does not create order. But all of a sudden, random mutations create the most incredible supercomputer in everyone's mind, and it creates birds that can fly and fish that can swim and cheetahs that can run 70 miles an hour, right? Randomness creates all that, right? To me, it was such a musser lesson in 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 seeing God everywhere when I took that course in biology. Okay, my friends, I know the Melvin and Marta asked if I could record this. They had something doing today. So I think this is a good place to pause until next week.
198.
Yeah, I've got a different book than you, but that sounds about right. Chashov.
Yeah,
Then
that's it.
afterwards, think at the Chovot
That's it.
HaNefesh. We'll pick up there next week.
Okay.
Kathy, how you doing?
Okay.
Good. How's your